G'day, this is Kieran. Today we're going to be cracking open my nan's cookbook again, this time for a traditional shortbread. Fantastic for Christmas or whenever. This awesome recipe from my nan, very easy to do. We've only got 4 bits of ingredients to measure out, so let's measure out the ingredients. We're going to preheat the oven and we're just going to be setting it to bake. We're not going to be doing the fan for this one, and a very low heat of 160. In a bowl of a stand mixer, we're going to be measuring out 65 grams of pure icing sugar. To the same bowl, we're going to add 250 grams of room temperature butter. Next, in a separate bowl, we're going to measure 210 grams of plain flour and 34 grams of rice flour, all in the same bowl. Now the first step is that we're going to add the whisk attachment to our stand mixer and add in the bowl with the butter and the icing sugar, and we're going to whisk it together until it all creams. Again, important that you've got it at room temperature or else this step is going to be quite messy. The icing sugar will go everywhere. Great, there we go. So you'll know that it's done when all the butter and sugar are all well incorporated together. The butter's still probably too cold the way that I'm doing this, but that's okay. We can just whisk it all together and off we go. Make sure you clean off all of the butter sugar mixture from the whisk attachment before we move on to our next stage. Now we're going to get our flours and sift it into our butter mixture, folding it in and stirring it until it forms a very buttery dough. Now I'm going to be doing it about into thirds, so I'm not overwhelming it, and so I can stir everything in and ensure it's all incorporated. Now on a lightly floured surface, so I'll just put a little bit of flour out there, turn out the dough that we've made, this very buttery dough, and we're just going to work a little bit so that we can put it into our baking pan. Now of course make sure you've got clean hands when you're doing this step, because you're going to be working this dough a fair amount. If you need to, just go ahead and add a bit more flour just to make sure it's not too sticky. There we go. Really, don't overwork it, because if you do, it's not going to be nice and crumbly. There we go, that's all you really need. Nice and soft, ready to be put into our baking container. Now in your baking receptacle of choice, make sure you've got some parchment paper on the bottom or some baking paper. It's just going to make sure that this all goes away without any sticking. So with our dough, I'm just going to round it out to match the shape of my baking dish. I've gone for a spring form just to make sure that I can easily access it afterwards. I'm just going to use the pretty side up, if you can call it pretty, and pop it down. Oh, I mean, don't worry so much if it breaks up. It's not as if it's like a bread dough. We should be fine with that. And just press it down to make the shape that you want. A little trick that my wife told me about how to just get it nice and flat on top is get some baking paper and then use that to just flatten out the top. You can use a tool as well if you'd like, but the fingers should do a pretty decent job. Once it's nice and even, you can just peel it away. This now goes into the oven, set to 160, again not fan forced, and it's going to take anywhere between 35 to 40 minutes or until golden on top. It's been closer to 50 minutes, and if we check up on our delicious one, we can see there's a nice light brown along the top. Time to take it out. Now we're going to transfer from our spring form over to a cooling rack. Once cooled completely, you can move it off the wire rack and onto a chopping board. You can also remove the baking paper or parchment paper that sits underneath, like so, ready to be cut up. It's easiest to cut it with a sharp bread knife. And there you go, crumbly, buttery, delicious. Well, there you have it, easy peasy. And this is a delicious recipe. Thanks, Nan. The taste of Christmas. Crumbly, buttery, sugary. What more could you want? If you like this recipe, make sure you subscribe, chuck a comment below. You know what to do.